On to the details now. As Ghana prepares to finalize implementation of Saturday's ITLOS ruling on the maritime boundary dispute between Ghana and Ivory Coast, Joy News is learning of fresh dispute over plans by Ghana to begin drilling oil in the Keta Basin of the Volta region. This afternoon, we have all the details for you here on The Pulse, including detailed interviews with petitioners and experts. That's coming up shortly. But first, let's bring you details of government's next moves after winning that maritime boundary dispute case against Ivory Coast. Former Attorney General, under whose tenure the entire case was initiated and also played key roles in the matter, has been speaking to Joy News' Mamavi Owusu-Aboagye in an exclusive interview on the AM show.
The arguments by Ghana before the tribunal were that there was a tacit agreement between Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire to recognize that maritime boundary. In addition, they were stopped from resisting that particular maritime boundary because of course, the practice over the years. I mean, decades, about 50 years of practice. And when I talk about practice, I'm talking about legislation on both sides, letters on both sides, and more importantly, the maps that our various national petroleum organizations had produced over the years. And on their side, there's Petrosi, and then on our side, there's GNPC. And so we said that there was a tacit agreement, and then we also pleaded that they were stopped from challenging this maritime boundary because they had allowed us to recognize that for years that this was the boundary. The alternative argument was that this particular line, which in any case had been recognized by the parties, followed the equidistance principle, which is the internationally recognized method of delimiting maritime boundaries. And that even if it was the issue of customary, tacit agreement, and Estobel did not hold sway with the court, that the tribunal was free to delimit our boundaries for us using the equidistance principle. We further argued that there were no relevant circumstances for which the line should be shifted. And of course, Cote d'Ivoire did not agree with that. They were of the view that the bisector principle was the equitable method of delimiting our boundaries, and that even if you used the equidistance principle, there were relevant circumstances for which reason the line ought to be shifted in their favor. The tribunal considered these arguments. Of course, as far as we were concerned, 50 years of practice and relying on that line meant something. And so we pushed the argument strongly. And as lawyers, I think we're obliged to push that argument on behalf of Ghana. The tribunal disagreed with us, but agreed that the equidistance method was the right method, and that there were no relevant circumstances for which reason the line should be shifted. And so we are where we are today.
Yeah.
Where
but on the claim of tacit agreements, yes, on hindsight, looking at how things went, would you have changed anything? Would you have done things differently?
We would not have done things differently. For us, it meant something. 50 years of practice meant something to us as lawyers. And so we were obliged as lawyers to put that argument to the tribunal.
So this issue actually broke over the weekend. So there's been a lot of things happening over the weekend, and we're covering all of that, and then we'll bring you some analysis on it. So Tullow Oil says that it expects some turnaround in its fortunes following the favorable ruling by the UN International Tribunal. That the decision by the German-based court now allows Tullow to go ahead with fresh drillings on the 10 oil fields. It also threw out most of Ivory Coast argument, but made some modifications to Ghana's maritime boundary, just like Marita Apiopon has been saying. And there's more in the following Business Desk report.
The issue around the border dispute between Ghana and Ivory Coast has now been resolved with the ruling by the special chamber, and I think the ruling kind of speaks for itself in terms of the outcome. And essentially, it does, make it clear that the border, as determined by them, doesn't affect our 10 fields. And therefore, we can continue to pursue our business. They made it clear that we hadn't violated any of the provisional measures, and therefore, again, well, when I say we, I mean Ghana, and therefore, once again, we can pursue our operations on the Ghana side of the border without any disruption. Okay, so I think those would be my opening statement. Basically, the ruling has come out. The ruling leaves the line as determined by the chamber, not affecting the 10 fields, and therefore we can see our way clear to continue with our operations. Obviously, we'll be in touch with the Ghana government in relation to the next major activities that we'll take up.
So, President Akufo-Addo met with his Ivorian counterparts at the UN General Assembly shortly after the ruling by ITLOS Special Chamber. The two leaders, according to Information Minister, have reached an agreement to work together to implement the decision that was made by the court.
Regarding ITLOS, the two presidents have agreed that they will all abide by the judgment of the court and will work together to ensure the smooth implementation of the judgments of the court. In this coming week, the Ivorian president would send envoys to Ghana, and together the two governments will tell the world what it is that they are willing to do in respect of this judgment. So for now, the president will hold his peace until that engagement with the Ivorian envoys, and then we can let the Ghanaian people know what the formal positions of the two governments are in regards to the ITLOS judgment.
Information Minister Mustafa Hamid there. That's been confirmed by reports that the Ivorian leader Al-Hassan Ouattara has pledged his cooperation with Ghana in this matter. President Akufo-Addo is expected to meet with Ghana's ITLOS team later tomorrow, and there's also been word of congratulations from Germany through its ambassador to Ghana. All right, we'll bring you that story, that bit of the German interview in a bit, but while the celebrations are continuing, there are other dangers ahead in the country's maritime and land border with eastern neighbor Togo, as well as dispute over the Ketra Basin, which significantly holds volumes of oil, has also been discovered. Let's take that story right after this break.